Hello! I'm finally over my cold and I can record this video. Paul Rubens sent me their floral watercolour set a few weeks ago, and I'm very curious to compare it to their standard set which they sent me a few months ago. I can never say no to the Paul Rubens watercolour sets because look how beautifully packaged they are, lovingly wrapped in cloths and with pretty designs on their tins. I have done a full video review on this particular tin, and I'll link it at the end of this one if you want to check that out as well. These are the 5th generation watercolours, and you can see the colour palette here. From the information I have, the floral set has 17 new colours, and 7 are repeated colours found in previous sets. But how could I resist that gorgeous floral box? Let's get it out of its plastic and let's get into it! That's better. You can see the box has a silky matte finish to it. And it's a very thick cardboard, so it's a nice solid box, and I've been keeping my tins in the boxes because I cannot bear to throw those out. These are Artist's transparent watercolour with 24 floral hues. From my previous experiences using the paints, I would consider them to be professional artist grade colours. I'll talk about them a bit more later, but let's get this box open because we have to see how beautifully wrapped it is. I really love these cloths that they wrap the tins in. Having items beautifully presented always makes them feel so much more luxurious. Now this tin is a plain pink, and they do have other sets with this same colour tin, but the previous set I got has the gold design on it. I'm glad they look different to each other because it makes it so much easier to pick which tin is which. And here's the other one as a reminder. The tin I'm showing now also comes in black with that gold design. But let's move back to the florals, and I like the pretty plain one as well. It's so hard to pull it out, it's never going to look this pristine ever again. But that's okay, because I know that there are some good colours inside to be had. I was momentarily distracted by the lovely velvety cloth there. Is it meant to be a cloth to wipe your brush on? I don't think I can bring myself to do that, it's just too nice as it is. So I'm keeping it clean, and I'll put it back in the box. I'm just going to move the box out of the way for now because I don't think I'll be needing it for the rest of the video. Let's open up the tin and see what's inside, because I was really hoping there would be a swatch sheet. It's a standard looking tin with a thumb ring underneath, but I generally tend to place my tins on a table to paint because it's so much easier. Opening it up, and yes, there are some bits of paper in here. There's a little pamphlet with all of the colours by Paul Rubens. And the entire thing is in Chinese, so I can't read any of it, I'm afraid. I was really hoping there was going to be some English on the swatch card, but each colour has a number associated with it, and I was able to read that much at least. I don't know that you can get individual colours anyway, I think they only come in sets. There is also a swatch card on watercolour paper, and the names are all in Chinese on here as well, but they do have the product number and also the pigment numbers, which is good. On the paint pans themselves, there are some English names, and I'm very thankful for that because I was able to write the names onto the swatch card as well. I'm already seeing at least one colour that is out of order in this set, and I'm going to have to change that around later on, but for now I've written in all of the names in the order in which they've come. I had spotted this indigo, which is also in the other set, but they're actually different pigment numbers. We have a France ultramarine, which I've written as French ultramarine. I could not read that green one. I think it's emerald green light. Then this one says Hooker's green brilliant. I'm guessing that's brilliant, so I've guessed a little bit on a few of the names here. I think they've been lost in translation a little bit. I decided to peel the entire sticker off these. They're quite sticky, so I was thinking I could put them somewhere else and have a second swatch sheet. They came off pretty easily, and that half pan looks like poured paint rather than extruded. I'm guessing on that one, that's just what it looks like to me. The other thing to note if you peel the stickers off in their entirety is that the pans are blank, so I took some time to write the names and the numbers of the colours on the pans themselves with a Sharpie. This way it's a lot easier to move them around and not get them confused. That colour is going to have to move because it's driving me insane already, but I've pulled everything out and I'm going to swatch them first and then rearrange them. I've got all my stickers up there. I'll deal with those later as well. I think we just need to do a swatch first. I'll swatch this first one out in real time. Most of the colours in this set activate in water really easily, and they don't really need to be pre-wet. You can just go straight in with the brush. This first one is a very vibrant, bright yellow. It's called Permanent Yellow Lemon in this set, but it is actually one of the repeating colours because it has the same pigment PY3 as one of the yellows in the previous set, and that one's called Lemon Yellow. So some of the names are different, but the pigments are the same. I think that's what they mean by the repeating colours. The other 6 in this set, which I was told are repeating, are the Indian Yellow, Permanent Violet, Cobalt Blue, France Ultramarine, Hooker's Green Brilliant, and Burned Brown. All of the rest are apparently new colours, and this Peach Light is included in that. It looks like Opera Pink, but I'm not seeing a fluorescent pigment in there. It's a PR 146 and it's quite granulating. It's a really interesting one. I'm not sure on the light fastness of that. But Paul Rubens' colours are generally pretty light fast from what others have tested. I haven't tested any myself and I'm thinking I might have to make a few charts to see how they hold up in the sun. You can see how that nickel yellow is just completely in the wrong place and that would drive me insane, so I did have to change that around eventually. I'm really liking the bright colour palette though. You know I love my bright colours, so this set is definitely for me, and I love to paint flowers too. I think these colours are pretty much all great for floral paintings. And I have some new favourites here, including the Peach Light, that Lavender Violet is a really pretty colour, the Nickel Yellow, and this Turquoise Light. I always love that colour so much, it's just so beautiful. As for the pigment numbers, I'm going to refer you to Miranda Watson's video because she's done a review of these as well and she went in depth into the pigments of all of the paints. So do go and check hers out if you want to know more about those. I just like looking at the pretty colours. Now here's where the problems come in. This yellow Sienna Deep did not want to activate in water and it is quite low tinting in comparison to everything else. The 3 browns are also made of the same pigment and they look really similar to each other. I think the Burned Brown is the best one of the 3 that I'm painting out now. It's a bit stronger than the other 2. But now it's time to make my decisions as to how I want the order of these paints to be, because those yellows and pinks are just all over the place. And we can't be having that precious. I ended up sticking all the labels onto a bigger piece of watercolour paper in the order that I like. I've gone and lost one of the labels, I don't know where it went, but in the time that I was doing my organising, it has disappeared. That is so super annoying, but I'm much happier with the colour order now. I have yellows, pinks and purples on one side, and blues, greens and browns on the other. And yes, I am wishing that one of those browns was a Payne's Grey. Payne's Grey is just so useful for shadow colours, but at least there's a darker indigo colour here, although it is very blue. So I think a Payne's Grey would be a nice addition to this set. Nitpicking aside, I do really like the new order in which I've put the colours, but here are the 2 tin sets side by side, florals on the left and 5th generation on the right. The indigos are quite different to each other even though they have the same name. And that's because they have different pigment mixes, but Permanent Violet is definitely the same as Dioxazine Violet with that PV23. As I mentioned earlier, Permanent Lemon Yellow is the same as Lemon Yellow. It's interesting because I said Indian Yellow is the same as one of the colours in the previous set, and I think it's meant to be the Chromium Yellow Hue Deep, but I have different pigment numbers for both of them, and the Floral Permanent Yellow Medium is saying PY65. It's the same for the browns. They were saying that the Burned Brown is the same as one of the colours in the other set, but the only brown in the other one is Brown Umber, which has a mix of pigments. Cobalt Blue is meant to be the same as another one, but I'm not finding that either. French Blue and France Ultramarine are definitely the same, and another one which I see as the same is the Sea Blue, which is PB15:3. That's the same as the Phthalo Blue in the other set, so that one did not come up on my list. Oh my gosh, I am so confused. I'm sure you guys are too by now. Otherwise, from what I can see, all of the pigments are quite different from each other, so there is quite a variation in the floral palette compared to the standard palette, although some of the colours do look quite similar. The greens look similar on screen, but they are showing as different pigment numbers on both cards. Anyway, I'm moving that away and we're just going to focus on the floral set. Because pigment numbers aside, I think it's more important just to worry about how they actually perform in a painting, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to try out some paper that was sent to me by Lightwish in this lovely green folio. It is 300 GSM cotton watercolour paper and I'm so curious to try it. I thought I would stick that chart in the back maybe. It is just slightly too tall, but it will be fine in there. I showed this watercolour folio in a recent art haul, and I decided I'm going to do only floral paintings in this particular book. So I'm going to make a cover page. I'm not very good with lettering, so I penciled it on first, and I'm painting the word floral on the front with a pointy brush. I foolishly did not have a design planned out for the cover, so I just kind of made it up, and I was testing out the paints as I went along. I really love that bright pink colour, it's so pretty. This lavender colour's lovely as well. But this page ended up being a bit of a sketchy mess. Never mind, I think I fixed it up by the end of it, and I was just relaxing, listening to some music and painting on bright colours. One of my favourite activities. The Lightwish paper's really nice, and it's in a cute little binder folder. I'll be linking everything in the description below so you can find them on Amazon and other places. Lightwish is affiliated with Paul Rubens, so I figured I'd show these two products together. And the paints work nicely on the paper. This rose colour spreads really well in water, as you can see here. And I found that some paints dispersed better in water than others, which is usual for watercolour paints. It often depends on the pigments themselves. The binder is gum arabic, and they do not contain any honey. As to whether they're vegan, I'm not 100% sure on that, but what I am 100% sure on is that these colours are really bright and I love this colour palette overall. I found that I did not use the browns in these paintings, though, I guess because I was focused on flowers rather than anything like a tree trunk or stems, things like that. I mean, obviously you can use these paints for things other than flowers, but because it says floral set, I just really wanted to try it out with flowers as my subject. And now I've got a book where I can paint future flower paintings as well. It had gone a bit blobby and abstract, so I am using a bit of pen to do some outlining. This fine liner completely died on me, so I'm replacing it with a rollerball pen that was working so much better. And I'm just turning this into an illustrative piece, because I really like drawing black ink over watercolours. I didn't do much mixing on this particular page because I just wanted to see the colours in their pure form, but I'm going to do another painting after this and kind of mix the colours a bit more. I decided to only draw lines on the roses, and I'm keeping everything in the background just as the paint itself, and the last thing I did was outline the letters in a white pen just to make them stand out a bit because that was looking a bit sketchy and messy. I think this improved them a lot, and I'm really glad I did this. And of course, once I get a white pen in my hands, then on go the highlights. I can't help myself. I just like to add white highlights to everything, even if they don't really belong there. These were just imagination flowers, so I can put them wherever I like. And here's the finished title page. I think it looks nice and bright. I wanted to do one more painting, and this time I'm even putting some tape around the edges in floral design. And this picture is a composite of 3 photos I took on my recent road trip. There were a lot of wildflowers in Western Australia, and I chose 3 different blooms to put together in the one picture. They're all the same kind of flower, and don't ask me what that flower is because I am terrible with botany. After making up the composition and sketching them in with a graphite pencil, here I go with the paints, and of course it is focused on my hand again. I hate it when the camera does that. I can't do a second take, so we're going to have to live with slightly blurry footage for a little while. It will come into focus soon. But I did spend a lot more time on this particular painting to make the colours more accurate, and I was doing most of my mixing actually on the paper itself, and now we can actually see this. I'd start out with the lightest colour and then add darker colours on top. I made a mess of that first petal, so I decided to do it again. I find that dropping colours on top of each other gives a much more natural look rather than mixing everything on a palette first. I mean, I do both really, but I definitely prefer to mix colours on paper when I can. You can see on this orange flower, I was trying to get a gradient of light at the tips of the petals and then going into darker colour in the middle of the flower. Somebody tell me what these are! I also let areas dry so that I could place darker colours in and not have them run everywhere. I wanted to have those defined linear shapes in the petals, which only works if one of the paints is dry before adding the other. And now I'm going in with a little bit of brown. I forgot about that bit. I actually mixed it in with the indigo to give that Payne's grey looking colour, because it's more of a blacky brown than the browns that were in the set. And now I'm painting on the most vibrant greens in the palette for the leaves, because they are really that colour as opposed to the more muted greens in the set. I think for this darker green I was using Emerald Green Light mixed in with Hooker's Green Brilliant to get a bit more of a shadowy green there. And then I decided I wanted to paint in a nice dark background. And it was a combination of Hooker's Green Brilliant, I think a bit of the Emerald Green, and also that lovely indigo colour. Those three colours mixed beautifully together. And you could see how they're sitting nicely on the cotton paper. I was wetting the paper first and then dropping the colours in to let them run where they wanted to. This gives a nice blurry background, and once everything had fully dried, I did go in with the second layer on the background because I wanted it to get really dark. And there is usually a drying shift with watercolours. They will dry a bit lighter than when you first put them on. The paints blended in nicely with each other, and the quality of the paints overall is really good. I like all of the greens and the bright colours. The four that let the set down are the Yellow Sienna Deep, and of the three browns, the burnt brown is probably the best one, and the other two feel a bit too weak. So I think that the earth colours overall could be better in this set, and like I said, it really would benefit from a Payne's Grey. I mean, they're not terrible browns, they're just nowhere near as good as the rest of the colours in the set. I think if the sienna and the browns were more vibrant, then the set would be definitely 10 out of 10. It loses a point or two for that. I'll add a point for packaging, so I would say 9 out of 10 for the whole set. It's worth bearing in mind that this is kind of a first impressions as well, because I've only used the paint set in this particular video, and I haven't spent time yet using the set over a long period. But I think you can see here that with a couple of layers, these paints get really vibrant, and they do work really well for flower paintings. And I'm sure other things too. The blues in this set would be really nice for ocean paintings, especially with that turquoise light. That's such a pretty colour. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Would you buy this set? Or if you have it, do you like it? I can definitely see me using this set alongside the other one to have an even broader range of colours. So I think the two palettes would work well together. Of course I must add some mandatory white pen highlights, and I'm also really liking this little Lightwish book so far. The paper's nice, and I'm so happy that it has 100% cotton paper because that's my favourite kind of paper to use. It behaved as expected, and it's a great quality paper. Just adding in a few little dots on the background, and now it's time to peel that tape off. Did I get a nice even border? Usually I don't, but this washi tape actually cooperated, and I achieved a crisp border around the whole thing. It didn't rip any of the paper either, so I'm really happy about that. Normally I make a huge mess with washi tape where it will either rip the paper or paint will seep in underneath, but you can see on this last satisfying peel that everything cooperated for me today. Hooray! This is a very rare occurrence, and so it must be celebrated. I'm really happy with how this painting turned out. I think the backgrounds worked really well, and there's a little bit of cauliflowering, but that's because I used so much water. I think that's more user error there. Otherwise, most of it has blended in well with each other, and the brighter flower colours are looking super vibrant against that background. And because people often ask which brushes I'm using, I'll just show you here. I swatched the colours and did the first painting with this Isabey No. 4 Kolinsky Sable brush. This is a natural animal hair brush, so it's not vegan, but I love it so much. It's really beautiful. I also have these two Princeton brushes, which I did the second painting with. These are Princeton Aqua Elites, and I'm pretty sure these are synthetic, so they are vegan friendly. They work nicely. I don't normally go for synthetic brushes, but these ones are really great. I really like Princeton Aqua Elites and also the Neptune range. I've got a number 8 and number 3 here in round. I use all sorts of brushes really, but these are the ones I picked for today's paintings, and I'll just show you what I did. This lovely bright cover page, and then I have one more painting in here which I managed to get done. Bright wildflowers from Western Australia. I may or may not paint on the reverse sides of the paper. I might just stay on one side so I can keep them as individual paintings because I can remove them from this little folder. And the last thing I need to do today is put that swatch sheet in the back so I don't lose it. It's just in there loose at the moment. I don't know that that's a very good idea. Maybe I'll find a better home for it. And you might see this Lightwish book in future videos if I do some more floral paintings. Here's what my palette looks like now. You can see I've taken quite a bit out of these dark greens and that indigo, along with the Indian yellow and a few other ones. There's still loads of paint in here though, and of course the brown ones haven't been used very much yet. Oops! I'll just have to do more paintings. But here's everything I got done today, and I just want to thank Paul Rubens for sending me this lovely set of paints, and I'll let you decide for yourself if you think it's worth having. I do. I think it's a really nice set, and I think I'll enjoy using the two tins together. And thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and you might want to click subscribe for more videos. I'll put my previous Paul Rubens review up here, and I'm sure I'll have another watercolour video over this side. I hope you're all having a great day, and I'll see you again in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!